I own and operate several burger bars, and currently in small business, we've got supply issues, cost increases, inflationary pressure, reduced sales, energy prices are soaring. So during the election, Mr Albanese came out and said no one could deny our lowest paid income earners a pay rise of $1 an hour. Now, he could have easily given that to them through tax cuts, if he was so concerned about it. But did Mr Albanese, before he made that promise, did he consult with anyone in small business to see whether we could actually afford a 5.1% pay increase that covers not just the lowest paid workers, but the 2.7 million people that currently paid under an award?
Alexi, was your organisation consulted at all?
In regards to the wage increase?
Yeah, Anthony Albanese backing the wage increase as he did during the campaign.
Look, we've had constant conversations with both sides of Parliament in terms of what's happening with what was happening during the election. It's complex. Yes, we had obviously discussions about that, but I actually wanted to ask Chris a question. Chris, have you had a wage rise?
This is Luke.
Luke, sorry, that's the next question. Luke, have you had a pay rise in, say, the last couple of years as a business owner? Could you say that you've seen an increase in your wages?
Certainly not since before all the lockdowns that happened a few years ago.
So just to that comment, it's when we're talking about profitability in comparison with wages, the ABS data said in May that only 14% of small businesses saw an increase in their income for that period. Now that's a tiny, minuscule amount compared to the number of businesses that are out there and the number of employees that they also look after. So I think the profitability question needs to be divided. You can't just look at the profits of BHP and Wesfarmers and Woolworths and Coles, all of which have been essential businesses and been able to operate at full capacity throughout the COVID period, and compare them with the profitability of small. If we don't start looking at the data properly and looking at the impact of wages on small businesses, then it's skewed. And I think that that's a really important part when we're having these discussions about wages and the way that they increase and the impact that they have on the biggest employer, which is small businesses. Those conversations need to be the case.
But are you saying, I mean, I know you said you respect the independence of the umpire, the Fair Work Commission here. Are you saying that 5.2% increase for the lowest paid was too much?
What I'm saying is that a small business owner looks at that in the capacity of how they're running a business now. If we were having a conversation just about wages and nothing else, then that would be a completely different conversation. But it's in the economic conditions that small business face themselves in.
So given those conditions, is there a business that you think really can't afford that 5.2%?
But every small business along the way is going to be affected. And whether or not they're paying above award and therefore don't have to raise it by 5.2% because they're already increased.
But you represent small business. Are any of your members said, we can't afford 5.2%?
Yes. Yes, many of those who have minimum award.
So what's happening to them? Are they having to close?
Absolutely. I mean, you only have to walk down the main street and say, we're not open on Sundays. That's 1/7 of your income gone, often more than 1/7. Or we're not operating because we're not offering on-table service. We're only doing takeaways at the moment because of worker shortages, because of these increased costs.
So, Brendan O'Connor, what do you say to that?
Oh, look, I think it's a really difficult decision, and that's why ultimately the decision wasn't made by the government.
But you supported it, you advocated
by the government,
it.
Yes, but we don't for a moment think it's easy. And I think if you look at the pandemic and its impact on businesses or the economy, it's such an uneven application. If I just go down to my local shopping strip and you look at the travel agent that's closed for years, and then you look at the fruit and veg and the butcher who were actually doing very well because no one was going to restaurants, so people were eating more at home. You could see this uneven situation where some are really struggling and others were not actually struggling, paradoxically, in the sense that at least more people there was more business happening in those shops. So there's no doubt that governments need to look at how the pandemic and other factors impact on businesses, and because it is very different from one sector of the economy to another. And small business, and I say this as a former Minister for Small Business, and I was in Cabinet as a small business minister, I absolutely understand that it's very, for many businesses, it's very difficult. And we do need to be very careful. And I know Alexi and I have spoken about this, about what do we do to make it easier for businesses to navigate the system, whether it is wages, whether it is training, whether it is getting access to services that they don't get currently. I think that's a really huge obligation of a government towards, as you say, millions of small businesses in this country.
Luke, let me just come back to you if I can. Tell me about the burger businesses you run. Have you had to pay the 5.2% or will you have to pay the 5.2% increase, and what's that going to mean for you?
We do, but getting across, the conversation was about is to our lowest paid workers, but it affects every award. So my supervisor under the fast food award that works on a public holiday is earning $65 an hour. Well, that's gone up 5%.
I think it's 4.6 for the...
Whatever, but it's everything gone up. But I think the conversation of the $1 an hour to the lowest paid workers isn't true. And I think it's easy for the government to say that when they're spending someone else's money. They're making a commitment, and I've got to pay for it.
But just to be clear, you haven't had to close any business, as Alexi was saying, some others have.
No, we haven't, no.
Okay, but how will you make up the cost? How do you find that?
Well, actually, our prices, it's not only that wage increase, we said all the other costs, so our prices are going to have to go up from 1st of July. I mean, there's another 0.5% increase in super contributions that comes in 1st of July. And yeah, we're under pressure. You know, I run a burger bar, I can't get any lettuce, for example. Yeah, all costs. So we've absorbed it all year, but we've got to pass it on. But my worry is, well, the public out there is already feeling the pressure of inflation. How much will my customers bear? But I can't keep absorbing it because I'll eventually go broke.
Yeah, well, let's not get into the price of lettuce. That'll be a whole extra hour.
I'm happy to get into the price of lettuce.
Okay, but Gabriela, let me just ask you just to round this out. I mean, what you're hearing there from small business, it is tough, but the people who are the lowest paid, I mean, we've heard from everybody else here tonight, it's really tough for them as well.
Yeah.
So is this the right level of increase?
Look, it's been a tough couple of years. Let's just acknowledge that up front. You know, it hasn't been easy for small businesses that have been operating or trying to operate through the pandemic. And at the same time, you know, we've seen that as a society, we've been able to cover the costs to some extent of people who we wanted to stay at homes for the sake of the health of everyone. So, you know, it is really, really tough. I do think that all of us over the next year are probably going to experience some kind of real wage cut. I don't think that that's avoidable, but, you know, we're hoping and kind of almost betting on the fact that that will be enough to push inflation into that 2 to 3%.